And it's interesting is when you start learning it, you start appreciating the art and the sport of boxing more and what is going on in a boxing match. So I did a lot of observing, learning, and I remember I was very nervous to start sparring because, again, I generally don't like to hurt people. And the whole concept of getting in a ring and trying to hurt someone, that was new for me mentally. You know, I played baseball, I played all these team sports. You're never really trying to hurt, really, the other person.
True.
And so that was a new concept for me. So I loved what I was learning on the bags. I loved the workouts. Again, the 1 hour workouts, I was still doing a lot of Spartan races. I found they were almost the best hour of workout I could do with that high intensity interval training, the circuit training. It was a new way and it worked me differently. And I really appreciated that and enjoyed that.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Legends Boxing Podcast. I'm pretty excited. We've got another guest in house today, and this is Jared Fields, everybody. And I know a lot of Utah locals know Jared Fields, and he's been around in the Utah world for a long time doing what? What have you been doing most of your life?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this. I think this is really great. So I am not a local Utahan. I moved here from Southern California to go to BYU. And 25 years later, I am still here. But yeah, I
that kind of puts you local Utah in 25
I'm basically
years.
a Utah. Now I have a Utah driver's license. But yeah, I went to law school at BYU and then started a real estate business right after that, back in 2009.
Oh, I did not know that. I didn't know you had gone to law school.
I did. Okay. I went to law school and decided that law firm lifestyle wasn't for me. And instead, kind of found a love for entrepreneurship and started selling real estate.
Back in 2009?
Back in 2009,
okay.
Yeah. Not a great market. Learned a lot of lessons getting into it then.
I would imagine.
Yeah, it's one thing I've really learned. We're in a tough time now. But I think from these tough times are where you can really build your character, build yourself, really learn a lot so that as things improve, you're in a great position to really thrive.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, no, and I can imagine because that time frame is what brought me to Utah, because I was living in California and the real estate crashed, the whole economy crashed, and that's really where I kind of started over. So you starting in the real estate business at that time was probably kind of like being baptized by fire.
It definitely was baptism by fire, and it's why I'm still in Utah. I actually had a job lined up as an attorney in Southern California, and due to the shift in the economy over the course of that year, that was no longer on the table. So here I am, but it's also how we found Legends. So
nice. Well, we're going to definitely get into that. Tell me a little bit about you, though, like family. You were married, kids?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you know me, then you definitely know my wife, Lynette. She's a rock star. We've been married almost, what are we coming up on, 19 years now.
Wow.
Long time. But we have 3 kids ranging from 9 to 15. So we're right in the thick of it, live in Orem. And yeah, that's us.
That's awesome. That's a pretty nice journey. And everybody that is a part of Legends does know Lynette, and she's a rock star. She's awesome. She's got a great story, and we're going to have her on in the future. But let's talk about a little bit of your Legends journey. To my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it started with Executive Fight Night, right, in EFN?
It did, but not my own. So,
okay.
So I think it was back in 2017, I attended an Executive Fight Night where 2 of my good friends at the time were actually fighting in it, Matt Cole and David Kent.
Okay.
And so we kind of made it an event to get a group of friends together. It sounded awesome. I didn't know much about Legends before that. Kind of knew Rob a little bit, knew of him, but attended that fight night and just was absolutely blown away and just loved what I saw. At that stage in my life, let's see, that was 6 years ago. I was in my mid 30s, in my career, kind of getting in that point where just looking for something new and exciting. I had never at that point, I'd never thrown a punch in my life. I didn't grow up a fighter. I'm a negotiator, right? I'm a communicator, but not a fighter. But I loved just what I experienced that night and what I saw from Matt and Dave and from everyone else. And as I was watching it, I just kept telling myself I need to do this. And so that's really where it all started.
Okay. So now Dave Kent, that was when he fought Lyman Wynn, right?
I believe so, actually.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, was...
So there was a lot of I knew them both. Lyman was also a well-known photographer in the fitness world. Lynette was doing fitness competing or getting into it. So we knew Lyman. And so there was all the trash talk going back and forth, friendly, but it was fun. And then Matt Cole's one of my absolute favorite people, and he happened to be in it as well. So it was a great opportunity for us to get a group together and make a night out of it.
I think that was Executive Fight Night number 1.
Was it really?
I think so. I think that was actually the very first one, if I recall, because it was in that kind of like soccer building.
Yes.
And at the end of the night, there was a electrical fire that had started. Yes. So that was Executive Fight Night number 1.
It definitely wasn't like the Executive Fight Nights of the last few years. And but I think it added to just the experience, like in this warehouse with these executives that really just gave it their all for 9 weeks and came together and had a fight. I mean, it was just such a cool concept, and it lit a fire in me. It was really neat to experience.
So let's fast forward to you were the very next year?
Correct.
Okay. So Executive Fight Night Gen 2.
Yes.
And that, I think, was our very first year we were with FitCon.
With FitCon, correct. Okay. Yeah. So right. I immediately got in contact with Rob after the first one and said, I want to do this next time. Obviously, it was a year away, so I had a ways to wait. My fitness journey really began with Spartan racing. That was my love. It still is my number one love, is actually the Spartan racing and trail running and a lot of things that fitness related. But I had never tried boxing, and I didn't even know about boxing fitness. And so I really didn't step into Legends until my application got accepted to become a fighter. And so I started traiing.
I remember that. It was the first time we ever met.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
It was. I know that for sure. And that was a really exciting training process that really actually kind of helped us learn more of a regimented type training process for the fighters. Walk me through kind of that first experience, if you remember. I mean, it's been 5-6 years. So
yeah, it's been a while, but I remember in the beginning, you have your unique 8-punch system, but I didn't know anything else. So it took us, week. It took a little while to get that down, then to really work on technique. Again, I'd never thrown a punch in real life. So again, it was all very new to me. I played a lot of sports. I was active, but really focusing on technique, learning. I started to fall in love with the sport of boxing. So I started watching more boxing. And it's interesting is when you start learning it, you start appreciating the art and the sport of boxing more and what is going on in a boxing match. So I did a lot of observing, learning, and I remember I was very nervous to start sparring because, again, I generally don't like to hurt people. And the whole concept of getting in a ring and trying to hurt someone, that was new for me mentally. I've played baseball. I play all these team sports. You're never really trying to hurt, really, the other person.
True.
And so that was a new concept for me. So I loved what I was learning on the bags. I loved the workouts. Again, the 1-hour workouts, I was still doing a lot of Spartan races. I found they were almost the best hour of workout I could do with that high intensity interval training, the circuit training. It was a new way and it worked me differently. And I really appreciated that and enjoyed that. But I'll never forget sparring for the first time. And especially when it got to really starting to throw a little harder. And every time I sparred, I got a bloody nose. Like, absolutely. And as a kid growing up, I would get bloody noses growing up in California. In the winters in Utah, when it's really dry, I get bloody noses. And that was actually one of my major concerns was, I'm just going to bleed out. I'm just going to get bloody noses every time I fight. And sure enough, every time I sparred, I got a bloody nose. And they're not just little bloody noses. They were, you remember, they would gush. And so we'll talk about the fight and the next one as well. Both times I didn't get a bloody nose. So
that's
either you trained me well or something, got lucky.
Well, I think that it's a mixture of training and then you finally just got tired of getting bloody noses.
Probably.
So you started moving your head and getting your hands back up to your face. But no, I do remember you've done Executive Fight Night twice. It wasn't
correct.
It wasn't the very next year, was it?
It was actually.
Okay. I thought there was a gap in between those years. So before we get into the very next year, I love this. I love where you're going and the training. So I want you to try to remember like all that training leading up to that larger stage production. I think that was the first year that we had like a bridge you had to walk up and across and down into the ring, and like it elevated you above everybody in the stage. So tell me your experience that. Tell me how cool was that to see kind of the production side of how the fight was put on.
It was incredible. Yeah. We had to walk out to, pick a fight song, and, you spend a lot of time thinking about that. The anxiety of the first fight, I don't think you understand that until you've done it. It was something I was not prepared for. Again, I've done Spartan races that take 4 hours, 5 hours, knowing that I had a 5-minute competition in total. The anxiety that building up all week and just, leading up to the event was just something different, something intense. But it was so good for me mentally to go through that. And getting there, having all your friends, your family there, and knowing they're there to support you. And then all the prep that day to make sure you're eating the right food, staying hydrated, and then getting there and getting ready. It was just an incredible experience. I loved it. It was honestly, for someone that was not a boxer, felt like I was like the main event of a huge show. And it was overwhelming, but incredible.
That's awesome. Now tell me a little bit about how that helped you mentally. What did that do for you? Well,
mentally, it challenged me. It's doing something new, which we should all do in all aspects of life. We know it's good for us, but it's really easy to get into a rut or to stay with what's familiar. And so this definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. I'm not someone that loves a lot of attention. And so knowing that there was a lot of attention, people there for me, stepping in the ring for the first time, seeing your opponent, knowing that very soon it's just going to be you and him, and you're both trying to hurt each other. It's a feeling that I'll never forget. And it's one that, a lot of us talk about that have done this, that you don't understand it till you've done it. It pushed me mentally, physically, emotionally in ways that helped me grow as a person.
That's amazing. Okay. So let's talk about the next year. How did that go? What was now, wait a minute. What happened?
We talk about the fight, right?
Yeah. What happened on the fight?
Yeah. So the fight, I had never met my opponent before. I think he was actually training. It was John. What's it? John Neal? John O'Neill?
Okay. Yeah.
Great guy. But I hadn't met him. I think he was training out of Hawaii actually for most of it. Because I think he was out of the area for whatever reason. But it was interesting I can't remember which one of us went out first, but when he was going out and they were announcing him, they talked about his experience with like MMA and some other stuff. And again, I had never thrown a punch. So that made me a little bit nervous. Like, I'm going to be fighting this experienced guy. But he was a little taller than me. He seemed a little bigger than me. But I worked really hard for those 9 weeks. I started in decent shape, but really pushed myself. And so it began, and I enjoy going back now and watching the fight, because after 5 years of now being a franchise owner, being involved for 5 years, I kind of do want to go do it again so I could fix a lot of the things that I watched. But I'm proud of that performance. I ended up winning, got in some good shots, and it was a slugfest. It was a good fight. But what I will never forget is when the adrenaline finally, like when it was done, I went to the back room, and it took me about 30 minutes to like feel my body just come back down to a calm state again. So that 5 minutes, the adrenaline of that 5 minutes is unlike anything I've experienced in my life. It was very clear that I didn't breathe well during the match, which, out of not taking in enough oxygen and really adrenaline high. It was an insane experience, but I loved it. Grateful to come away with the win, and just lit a fire. I just fell in love with boxing and Legends boxing and the whole concept. And honestly, I wasn't planning on doing it again. I wasn't planning on buying it. I didn't know it was a franchise, but I signed up for a membership afterwards because I found that I was lacking some motivation over the next several months. Sometimes when I go to the gym, and I know how to lift weights, I know how to get in good workouts, but I really missed that touch of a personal coach kind of pushing you for an hour. So if you're lacking the motivation when you show up, once you show up, you're going to get that hour workout in. And so I actually paid for it. Both my wife and I paid for memberships right after Executive Fight Night and became official members of Legends Boxing.
Well, I think you took it a little further than just membership too, because, as he mentioned, he's a franchise owner. Where are your locations that you own?
Yeah, so we own the locations out in Austin, Texas. One is in South Austin. A second location is in Cedar Park, which is just north of, it's basically still the greater Austin area. And, we hope to open a third there in the next year or two as the economy kind of comes back and is working, a little better than it is now. But again, even at that point, we didn't know it was a franchise till well after we became members. We were working out probably for 6 months. So it's probably 2 years in, a year or two in before we knew that Legends was even franchising.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, that's new to me too. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So let's talk about year 2 now. Okay. So Victory, did you wear your belt to like a family dinner? Because you won a belt, right?
Yeah, I did, but we can't find it. So I'm working with Rob to try to get another to figure out it was a crazy night. So we were trying to figure out where it went. But it was obviously it was it was my first fight. I had never thrown a punch at 100%. Even in sparring, I don't think I threw a punch at 100%. So that was the first night of truly, truly challenging myself in that way. And it felt good.
Okay. So now let's fast forward to year 2.
Yes.
Same training regiment, same kind of everything, or what was different about year 1 to year 2?
So actually the big difference with year 2 is that we signed our franchise agreement in January of 2019. And I think the fight was in April or May. And so we were right in the thick of really trying to start opening our first gym. So we were going back and forth from Austin. I was really busy with real estate, and that's my day job. And I actually kind of felt like I had an advantage over my opponent because I had already done one. Mm-hmm. So I kind of allowed myself not to work as hard because I was busy. And so I probably came in 3 times a week, and I probably only sparred 2 or 3 times. And I probably should have taken it. I took it seriously, but that was about the best I could do. And I could have done better in that fight.
Okay. All right. So you are 1-1.
1-1.
Okay. So is there a third for the future to break the tie?
Do you know what? I think I would love to do a third.
Okay.
We're definitely thinking about it, but my wife is actually very interested in doing her first.
Well, why not have both of you on the same card?
Do you know what? That might be something.
You know who to reach out to. You know who to talk to. I think that would be pretty fun.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know if we can handle all of that intensity at our home at once. We will see.
Well, like you said, you got to be able to ready to accept change. Change is good.
Right.
Allow new things to come in. So this would be another just strengthening part of your relationship and your family. So
yeah, we'd hope so, right?
Well, it'll be fun nonetheless, and it'll make another great podcast episode.
Oh, well, then we might have to just do it.
So tell me real quickly, we're running a little out of time, but tell me really quickly, what is it like being, you are in the real estate world right now? That's your day job. That's your full-time job. Who do you work for? What's the organization that you're with?
So we run my own team. There's about 20 agents on the team, and we cover most of Utah. So it's very busy. It's very active. It's obviously that we're in a shifting market, and we have, since COVID, things have been all over the place. So that's been very busy. But we also have these 2 gyms in Austin that we go out to visit at least every month, either my wife or I or both of us together. And it's been really, we opened our first gym 2 months before COVID hit. And it was in Austin, where they have their COVID response was a little bit different than here in Utah. And we had to keep our gym shut for about 3 months after only being open about 2.5. So obviously that was unpredictable and very challenging situation that we began with. But now here we are, 3 years later, and we're almost at 400 members at that first location. It's been a grind. It's been a lot of work. We're so grateful for our team that's in place there now, that we have some absolute just rock stars, great people, and the tribe there is absolutely incredible. And we're really proud of that gym and our staff and our members and how they've come together to handle all the conflict, all the intensity of the last several years.
That's great. That's so awesome to hear, because I do remember that. And that was such a huge, just like, whoa factor. Like, oh my gosh, this is hitting everything. It's taken so much, and it hit you guys so hard that it's so awesome to see how far you've come to bouncing, and now you have a second location. So congratulations to that. That's so great to you and your team. Couldn't be more proud of you guys. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Last thing, if someone was listening to this and they've are in that boat that you're in right now, trying to juggle and manage so many different things, what's one great piece of advice that you would give them?
Well, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it right now, because I'll tell you, it's been 3 years of just stepping up to the plate and really getting things done. And right now, our focus really is on simplifying, getting to the basics, really working on our night routine so that we can get to bed on time, get good sleep, wake up early, and get productive and get things done. Because really there isn't a lot of time in the day, especially with our kids. Family's number one. And we've got to dedicate time to them when everything is said and done. We need to make sure we're putting our time where it matters the most. And so it has not been easy, and I do not have the answers to that question, except that, man, you just sometimes got to grind it out and keep your priorities straight.
Well, you said it. You simplify. Yep. Look for the simple route, and so there's the advice for you guys. If you're managing, juggling, Jared's doing it all the time. Okay. And so it's a matter of grinding. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of putting it forward and just never, ever stopping. Because again, it only stops when you do. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you were able to make the time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, man.
Well, thank you. And hopefully we'll be doing this again when we have maybe a fight announcement or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew.
Take care.
Okay, see you.